So much for joining. Today I have special guest David Johnson Wood. He is an amazing husband and father. He's a U.S. Marine veteran. He participates in extreme sports like rock climbing and CrossFit, but he also owns his own company called Virtus Outdoors Group. Now, this company specializes in tactical gear, outdoor equipment, and also high-performance athletic wear. First of all, thank you so much for joining. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
I want to start out because I see you on Instagram and you seem like you have so much motivation. You're always working out, you stay fit, and I really, really admire that. So I kind of wanted to know, what is it that keeps you motivated on a daily basis?
Most days when I wake up, I don't want to work out. Probably 6 out of 7 days. It is, and I preach this constantly. It's daily consistency. We iron in the virtue of discipline with daily consistency, and then it becomes ritual. And so I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to get up and work out. When the AC is cranking and my bed's comfortable and I've had broken sleep and I've feel like I'm finally in that zone and my alarm goes off at before 5 a.m. I'm rarely motivated unless I've got a new pre-workout or there's I've got a new toy to play with, new straps or new bands or a new sandbag. But it is that pattern of ironing in daily consistency and creating those patterns, and that's in every aspect of life. That's starting with our spiritual, the metaphysical, the spirit to the mind and to the body. And so everybody's different. For me, I'm a creature of habit. And in the Marines, we started early and we ended somewhat early. So I get up at right before 5 a.m. I start by getting on my face and giving thanks to my Creator for another day. I open the scriptures. I have my daily scripture reading and I meditate on that. I pray on that. That's the spiritual. So that's the beginning of the metaphysical. That's as I say again, spirit, mind, body. If we say mind, body, spirit, our spirit lags in the back, and we can't set our moral compass correctly if we're being run by the greed and thoughts of our head, with our body following that, and then our spirit. But I'll tell you, every workout that I do, when I'm dripping in sweat, when I've got my pump, when I'm exhausted, when I've done that final set to failure, I'm so glad that I did it. And so I think, you're a coach, you're a fitness guru, you know your systems, you know what works, and you know what works for your people. And when we go into our methodology, spiritually, mentally, and physically, and we get that, what would you call it? We get that glorious finish each time. We get that touch from the divine. Whether I truly believe that our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit. So when we train them to exhaustion, we are burning out the toxic, whether that toxic is drugs and alcohol, whether it's fatty food, whether it's lipids, whether it's just getting our lactic acid blasting. We're getting that cleanse. And that's really what motivates me and inspires me to continue to do it. It's that validation that we earned it. And so that, I wish that I could say there's a pill or there's but it's consistency and beginning to know yourself. You and I are in our 40s. We know our bodies.
Yes.
It's not like when we were in our 20s and it's, I can eat whatever I want and then go do this. It's, okay, this doesn't react well with me. Maybe eating something lighter at night is going to be easier for me in the morning. Maybe sticking to something like dates and Greek yogurt and honey is going to be better for David than a big steak at dinner. And so it's kind of growing and trial and error. And then, like you and I were talking about offline, where we were talking about kind of adjusting fire. What works close to the target might not work backing up to 300 yards, to 500 yards, to 1,000 yards. So it's, as we're talking right now, iron sharpens iron.
Right. Yeah. And I think for those, young people listening, it's definitely important. I know, you can get so wrapped up and, try the latest and greatest, fads out there, whether it be exercise or diet, but it's so important to listen to your body, to respect your body, and things just work so much better when you do it that way. One of the things I wanted to ask you was, do you have some people that have really impacted you?
I do. I've got a list so long that we could do a podcast series on that weekly, but I'll talk about 3 people that have impacted me and that have helped me through chaos. And that's my father, John Wood, my business partner, one of my mentors, Tim Scott, and my wife, Viva. Spiritually, growing up, I was a little rebel. I was a pastor's kid. I ran and I ran and I ran. And my father is one of the reasons that I've always come back to Christ, and that I've always come back to the acceptance and understanding of a divine Father that loves me and accepts me no matter how far I stray, that I'm always welcome back home. And whether we're the prodigal son or the prodigal daughter, we're always welcome and embraced back into our Creator's loving arms. And my father showed me that depiction as my earthly father. I'm not a great father, but I try my best to take care of my kids. Those folks who follow me on Instagram know that I met my daughter for the first time 2 years ago. She literally found me on Instagram. I had no idea that she existed. And, we can't get back years that we've lost, but it was my father who taught me that it's never too late to do the right thing. And it's never, if we're living consistently, right, if we're building in the rituals of accountability, of love, of living in the fruits of the Spirit, then we are going to the right destination. That right destination, I always say the telos. As a Christian, the telos it's the acme. It's the mountain. It's God. It's eternity with our Savior. It's the top of the mountain. And telos in Greek is just the summit. So to those, guys and gals that are atheist, agnostic, or whatever, just warriors that want to understand how do I stay on a path? How do I stay on a trajectory? And what's the goal? It's great to align with like-minded warriors, folks that you're coaching and training. They're accountable to you. You share all of your flaws and failures with them, and it helps guide them and narrow down things that they don't have to do because you lead by example. So my father was and still is. He's still with us. I'm talking about him like he's already gone. But he's been the greatest rock for me to see a picture of Christ as just having my identity as being a son or a daughter of God, and having that be most important. Then second is Tim Scott. He's my original co-founder of Virtus Outdoor Group. And Virtus is Latin for warrior virtues. And VOG, Virtus Outdoor Group, is also Virtues of God. And it was Tim that really put that together and had the paradigm of let's have a validated, warrior, authentic company. He's an extreme hunter. He's not a vet, but he does global mission work. He goes to the poorest of the poor areas. He's made a fortune in man's eyes. He's a very successful entrepreneur in many facets. He's an owner and a shareholder in over a dozen companies, from tech to textiles to pharmaceuticals. Just he's all over the place, and he invests in people. He doesn't invest for the profit. He invests in areas where he says we can use this for the kingdom. And we've hit so many rocky financial times. I mean, look at where we're just coming out of now.
Right.
You know that I've been in Hong Kong for over the past decade, and we were rocking and rolling there. Everything was, it was the place to be for global procurement, running e-commerce platforms, shipping out, to any demographic that you need. And then the protest started almost a year ago, and we watched Hong Kong crumble.
Wow.
And he's been the one that said, David, this is God's company, and God is, as long as we're on God's path, we're doing the right thing. And I don't want you to worry about finances. I want you to worry about doing what God wants this company to do. And every time that I've said, but this is the direction we should go, we've got this deal with this group or this deal with this group, he said, if it's God's will, it will be done. But if we're not prayerfully pursuing what is God's will, then we're just picking and choosing, and God is not a genie in a lamp that we just stroke and say, hey, I need this, and then we get angry with it if it's not, if it doesn't work. We have to be the clay and we have to allow God to be the potter. So Tim has been a guru to me in teaching me the right steps in finances. And being a leader, as a seasoned CEO, he gives me the wisdom and advice, but he's also that calm brother in Christ that leads from the front, but guides and is authentic with his validity and his humility in searching for the right avenues to follow Christ. So he's changed my life. I mean, he's literally my pastor now. He'd laugh hearing me say that because he's not a pastor, but to me, he certainly is. He's just a wonderful asset in my life. And finally, my wife, Viva, was really the one who got me back into the outdoors. I'm sure you can imagine the Marine Corps, infantry to intel, deploying from all over the triple canopy jungles from Latin America, over the Balkans, all over the Mediterranean, desert to desert, finally to Pakistan, Oman, and Afghanistan. You can imagine that the Marine Corps, as brilliant as it is, some of the fun of camping and hiking and the outdoors can be taken away from you because you've kind of done it.
Sure.
You've done those environments. And she, when I met her, she doesn't party, doesn't drink, isn't into that life. She was pushing me to get back into the outdoors. Every day hiking. Hong Kong is a mega city, but it's an island. There's a Hong Kong Island and then the Kowloon Peninsula. So you've got such a diverse biosphere. You can go diving, paragliding, rock climbing, canyoning all in the same day and be back into the city for dinner. So she really taught me to enjoy God's artistry and to unwind and to get out the angst and stress, not in it with drugs or alcohol or partying or this or that, but to put that endurance and put that joy to get back into the outdoors. So, and honestly, I know it's not a person, but the Marine Corps, as far as teaching me and shaping me into a human that doesn't quit and understands that no matter the obstacle and no matter the chaos, it is looking at our core values in the Marine Corps. And this is one of the biggest reasons that I chose the name Virtus, the warrior virtues, Latin for warrior virtues. Our honor, our courage, and our commitment is what truly defines us. And if we're looking at things honorably, if we're looking at things honestly, and if we're looking at things to battle with truth, then we will always find a way to improvise and to adapt and to overcome. And going back to Tim Scott, I mean, his greater depiction of this was the Marines taught you physically and mentally, but they didn't teach you spiritually.
Right. We
are so blessed to be able to look as guy, girl, gay, straight, black, white, Asian, whatever beautiful creation we are by our Heavenly Father. We're able to all align without the Marine Corps or without the military into being sons and daughters of light and to focus on the truth. So I definitely wouldn't have been able to, I guess, say hang in there and find different avenues to conquer obstacles in the path if the Marine Corps hadn't grounded me in understanding that we don't have to have a Harvard MBA to get through and navigate through business. We've got to have grit. And we've got to have perseverance. And I've seen more and more times than I can count guys and gals that come out with just pure grit and navigate and battle their way through the business land and jump hurdles around folks who've kind of been spoon-fed degrees and rest solely on those degrees versus the work. There's nothing wrong with excellent educations. Their education is very, very important, but we can also be educated in the school of life.
I know for sure that with all that you're doing, with all of that positive stuff that you're talking about, all those messages, was there someone in particular that really you really spoke to and you really helped out that you know of?
When I started doing those street sermons on my way to the gym when I was living in Hong Kong, I guess probably about 4 years ago, I was doing them to keep myself accountable. Last year, I think I was in over 115 countries. Mm-hmm. So traveling nonstop, on weekends, being in 3 different countries, landing in one, doing an event, flying to a meeting in another in Europe, and then headed to, the Middle East or just nonstop. And so I was kind of doing an experiment like journaling, but on the move, where I was taking my pre-workout after I had read my scriptures, gotten up in the morning. I have a pretty consistent routine, my ritual, which is the first thing I do when I get out of bed and it's still dark. I put my face against the ground and I pray, and I meditate, I pray, and I just give thanks for another day, and I pray for strength to use all my energy to do good and try my best to make the world a better place. And I go from that into reading scripture. And so the street sermons were, and then I went from that, I took my pre-workout, and I would walk to the gym in Hong Kong or wherever I was. And so my ritual became talking to myself in a surrounding and saying, can I be comfortable around total strangers walking through a street talking about this?
Right.
Because I would very often have people follow me, and when I was done, want to talk about what I was saying. And so this became just a really cool kind of experiment that I was doing, starting with to keep myself accountable, and then almost as a social experiment. And then the more that I started doing this, God really started using it. And I started saving the stories and putting them on. And it's been there's not one that I can talk about in particular, because there's been so many in different, just in different ways where it's, and where it's come back to really witness to me, where somebody said, I needed this is where I'm going on in my life. And through getting to know them and praying through things, it showed me areas in my life that were still so broken that I needed to pray through. So, I think that it's one of those things where God uses his light to shine into other people and then shine back into you through other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of recycling.
Yeah. So. Yeah. You seem like you seem like an extrovert, just someone that is able to just go out and just speak to anybody. I'm such an introvert. Like, I know on Instagram I might seem like I'm like all out there and stuff like that, but like I am just very to myself. I'm actually happy that I have my gym at home now and I don't have to go back to the gym. It's really crazy, but I definitely I'm just like kind of jealous,
I'm a bit of both. I mean, I love to read. I love to write. I'm a musician. So being in isolation has been, I miss my wife and I miss my kids. I'm sure my wife doesn't miss me as much as I miss her, because I am pretty intense. She's like, I love it. We'll be in Spain. You be in Vietnam. How about month to month?
Right.
So she's a trip, but I love people.
Yeah.
I love, when I finished the Marines and came back to the U.S. from Afghanistan for my last deployment, I used the Montgomery Journal to study philosophy and religious studies, to double major and then minor in Spanish. And one of the reasons that I did that is because one of the biggest barriers that I found working internationally, and whether that be working as a liaison, doing mission work, I found as an American that we are such a protected country, and we are, no matter what president's there, we are a bit of an isolationist country. I mean, we're similar to Australia. We're just kind of our own thing here, and it's we speak our language. We don't really need other languages. If we don't leave America, I mean, I know a lot of Americans that don't know the 50 states and their capitals. And they just think, they don't really care about what's going on anywhere else in the world. And that's not to their fault. That's just, again, especially with social media, we are right now we can't even travel. I can't even leave Vietnam because of the COVID virus. The mutated killer subflu. That attacks nursing homes and people getting hit by buses.
Right.
I say that in jest, but for me, studying religious studies, it gave me an opportunity and an opening to understand what I think are kind of the biggest building blocks in cross-cultural differences. And if you look at what's going on in America right now, within our own country, this is identity politics playing out to a T. Tribalism, being forced into subsects. Okay, well, I'm black, you're white. Okay, well, you're white, but you're a woman. So, well, now it's gender. Okay, well, you're white, you're a woman, but if you have money, now it's class. So we're any way that we can be divided more and more and more. At the end of the day, you're bad if you have money.
Yeah.
That's what it gets at. I mean, I posted something with Candace Owens. Well, she doesn't speak for the group. Well, if you're telling me one person speaks for an entire black community, that's racist. I mean, like at the very heart of racism, saying this one person speaks for all. Well, geez, now you've just killed a whole argument against individuality within your own tribe.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I mean, it's like, I see people get so heated, but at the base of like informal logic and like a modus ponens or a disjunctive syllogism, just looking at A plus B equals C, we're in a place where we're saying, okay, we're just creating letters that aren't even in the alphabet.
Right.
We're just going on. We're just creating. We're just adding things to our language, and we're creating these subsect cultures instead of being unified. So, yes, I'm an extrovert, almost to a fault,
right?
Because it's very good for me to have time like this in isolation where I'm reading and I'm studying. I was saying on a podcast the other day that one of the most influential books in my life recently was Gandhi's The Way to God. And people were like, "Oh my God, you can't read Gandhi! You can't read Gandhi! You can't read Gandhi, you're a Christian." And I said, what is the repeating, what does Christ say? He says, only the Father knows your hearts. And if we're saying we're something and we're not living like Christ, Gandhi was definitely, I think that I'll see Gandhi in paradise.
I mean, you could.
But who am I? Who am I to say who I'm going to see in paradise?
Yeah.
Who am I? Nothing. God says, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say real quick, I just really love that because I think that some people get the whole Christian thing mixed up with like people that are like they assume just because one person or they see a certain group of Christians not be very forgiving, or it's like my way or the highway type of mentality. They kind of like, oh my God, well Christians are so bad, they're so judgmental or whatever. And I just love hearing like your love for everybody and your acceptance of everybody, and you're not assuming things, which I love.
I'm just such a piece of trash without Christ's grace that I think so many times we get comfortable. Again, I mean, just like what's the common denominator we keep talking about? Identity politics, group identity, strength in the mob mentality. And this was a reason that I ran so fast and so far and got into drugs. I saw so much hypocrisy, not in my father, but in so many youth groups and young life groups. And you can come be part of this if you believe this and if you say this, but if you had an abortion or if you've gotten pregnant or if you're gay or this or that, you're not welcome to the campfire. And you're pointing out things that you can point at and see.
Right.
But you're not getting into all of the other things that are parts of our brokenness and our pride and our lust and our greed and all of the brokenness that's internal, that aren't things that we can just point at and say, okay, well, I don't look like that, or I don't do that in bed, so now I can separate myself. And when you look at Christ, he came and chose to be the race of slaves of the Jews who didn't even have the authority to crucify him, had to go to the Romans and present a case. I mean, this is history. Like this is it's 2020 AD.
Yeah.
This is whether you like it or not. You don't have to believe in the resurrection, but it's documented. His life, his death, the crucifixion, Pontius Pilate. He came, and we look at racism, sexism, let's say, and then we look at Christ. He came as a slave, born in a manger. Nothing to do with being an earthly king, and was the Messiah, the atonement, the sacrificial blood. But we look at his life, the most important thing that I believe that gives me hope is the resurrection. If Christ did not resurrect from the dead, then it's a sham.
Right.
And so looking at that as being the most important event, who was the first person that Christ showed himself to? Mary Magdalene, A woman.
Yeah, that's true. That's very
true. Who was
true.
Mary Magdalene? A prostitute.
Yeah.
And it's who were the most special and important people to Jesus Christ? The broken, the laborers, fishermen. They were so when I read Gandhi's The Way to God, and he says, I love your Jesus, but I hate your Christians. And you think about him being called a boy and a second-class citizen by, British colonialists, and you think, are we being reflections of Christ? If we're not being reflections of Christ, if we're only wanting to talk to our sect and our group, well, I'm a Presbyterian, well, I'm PCUSA, well, no, I'm this. Our subsects, even in our denominations, I think that God weeps that we have denominations. I think that God weeps that we've got a Catholic and a Protestant. I think, when I see, I hate the labels. I just like looking at people's actions with their faith. Like I look at Mother Teresa, what a saint. I look at Martin Luther King, what a saint. I look at Luther, who nailed the Treaty of Worms, that Martin Luther King was named after, the priest that is the reason that I'm alive and that my father was allowed to marry a woman and procreate, And I look at these heroes, and what do they all have in common? They went out to help the masses, not to go help people who said, well, I believe what you believe, so let's figure out how to make something profitable too, and trickle down economics to have money to fund the cookies for the Bible study and this and that. But no, let's get uncomfortable and go out to those who hate us or those who don't know our King. And that's, people say you can preach the gospel and teach the gospel, and sometimes you even have to use words, but if you're really doing it, you don't, it's your actions, and it's love, and the fruits of the Spirit, the 9 fruits of the Spirit that Christ teaches us are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And when we abide in those, that's when we get the light. And that's when David goes away, and David's anger or ego or these things that are earthly go away, and that's when we make an impact on people. So as an extrovert, when I'm centered in that, there's an impact and there's light. When I'm centered on me and my ab shots and this and that, I can sell some sandbags and hopefully sell some shorts. That's how I feed my family.
Right.
But when it's things that are of the metaphysical connect, where we are divine creatures made in our Creator's image, I think that's where we get the most. That's where we have the most everlasting impact. My dad always said the only thing we can take to heaven with us is each other.
That's true.
So invest in each other, invest in our souls, invest in outside of the tangibles and corporeal reality, and in what's eternal.
Now, you brought up your company just like briefly, but I kind of wanted to, can you talk a little bit about that as far as in like what really kind of was your major factor for creating Virtus Outdoors?
So in 2014, I'd been in Hong Kong the past 14 years. I went over to Hong Kong to work for NPOs and NGOs and do sensitive liaison work. Really building underground house churches in China where Christians were getting killed and persecuted, and being a funnel and a middleman, providing assets. I wasn't doing evangelism. I wasn't preaching or teaching, but I was working as liaison and surveying where money was being taken and scammed. And, the old kind of paradigm of the Western missionary was go to the unreached people groups and live there with them under the radar and just kind of teach and have Bible studies. And more power to people that did that. That's great. But where we are now with globalization, with people having VPNs, with being able to share technology, is we need not the kind of colonial, let's go here, but let's work with leaders of this culture. Let's work with Chinese Christians. There are Chinese Christians. Let's make sure that they're not getting, edited. I got to be really careful with what I'm saying right now because of where I am. But let's make sure that there's truth and that there's, real things getting to people that need them. So kind of going from that into Hong Kong, then getting involved as a liaison and getting to share some of my experiences being a SHRIG Marine. SHRIG is Surveillance, Reconnaissance, Intelligence Group, which does all sorts of different collections, so to say. Getting to bring that that background into working with the Thai government, Cambodian government, battling human trafficking, and kind of getting to have this deployment work. You know, we say in the Marines a salute report, salute, size, activity, location, unit, time, and equipment, and getting to kind of look at my own 1 in 50,000 ADRG map and create my own salute reports gave me the opportunity to work with different investors whose hearts were for this, or for this, or for this, and which in turn began to build up a Rolodex of that it wasn't planned, but began to build up a Rolodex of factories, government officials, trusted people in certain areas in Southeast Asia and China. And so I got into commodities, and Hong Kong is a financial hub, so I started working with a lot of high-level private equity guys. And in private equity globally, with all of the different trading routes, infrastructure booming all over Southeast Asia, Alcoa, where I'm from, shutting down, and steel being delivered all over the world. I mean, I will say Donald Trump is definitely helping to build infrastructure. Those areas are back and rolling, and there's aluminum and steel being produced right out of Alcoa, Tennessee, where it needs to be being produced. We should be paying to ship this stuff around. But at the time, we were. So I'm doing, steel deals out of Penang, Malaysia, out of Tianjin, China, out of all over the place. And I start getting asked by folks in the States and in Europe and in Australia, hey, we need help sourcing this. Can you help us? We're buying this much of this a year. We're trying to go to trade shows, or we're getting on Alibaba, but we're getting screwed when the containers get here, and it's not we need it, and we have, we've never been to the factories. We're just stuck with something we've paid. This isn't what we ordered. This is a mess. And so I founded a company called DJW Holdings, David Johnson Wood Holdings. One of my mentors in Hong Kong, Sean Crawford, private equity guru. He's kind of the special forces operator in the upper level banking echelon. And he said, David, I want to help you protect your sources. And you're from being a Marine, you go anywhere, you improvise, adapt, and overcome. But I want to help you set up security barriers to where you're learning to give quotations, run a purchase order, collect invoices, and help and assist fully vertical in logistics, quotations, and literally global supply chain management as well as sourcing. And so I did that with him for several years, and we banked. I mean, it was a thing where it was really exciting. It was deal flow. The money was great, but there was nothing other than that. I wasn't like, wow, I feel good about that steel. That was really that was special. That was beautiful steel. It was just, finances.
Yeah.
And I was contracted by a group that had a patented camo, Army guys, hunting gear, textiles. I've met my wife. I'm rock climbing again, canyoning, paragliding, just MMA, full go, doing what I love. But it was work, and then that, and I was liking the money with what I was doing, but there was no satisfaction other than closing deals. And in closing deals, it was just party time. I'm a shareholder of a restaurant group, Maximal Concepts, that and actually invested in restaurant groups because that was a place that I saw every religion, color, race, gender come together outside of the boardroom and actually get deals done. Everybody's cool when they're eating and drinking around a table. Right. So my kind of celebration for getting deals done was to party, entertain, and then do the outside, the outdoors that I loved with my wife, and my spiritual life, my chi, my trajectory to the telos was all over the place. I didn't know where my true north was because I wasn't adding value to anyone. In my work and what I was doing. And I became the director of Asia for this company, and I got into sourcing textiles and fabrics. And in that, I had all the horrible memories of being a young Marine, infantry Marine, before getting selected to go intel in Panama in jungles of triple canopy, breaking brush, just wearing old school BDUs, crappy LBVs. This is like pre-Molly system, which is ancient right now. I mean, it was like Vector, then Molly, and just terrible gear, terrible fabrics, to working in freezing areas in all over Europe, training militaries in the Middle East, and then finally being in Oman, Pakistan, and Afghanistan for the initial surge after the World Trade Center bombings. So I had all of the experiences of what was bad gear. And I'm out here doing all of this, all of my adventures authentically, really doing them, living them, in brands like Arc'teryx, Patagonia, brands that I still love, great freaking brands. Virtus Outdoor Group isn't the greatest outdoors brand. It's a selective brand if you like functional fabrics for active lifestyle. But there's brilliant brands out there. And I saw and was at the factories where Arc'teryx was branding their own fabrics, and Lululemon especially is what hit a switch in my head and said, wow, they are treating their fabrics at the thread. I was seeing factories that were making Nike, Adidas, Puma, brands that I also like. But the minute that I would put one of these shirts in the dryer on high heat, it would come out with almost a whole different feel. Like it felt like it had almost, that's because it had a spray-on wax treatment, which is very cheap to do. And I mean, these are billion-dollar companies it's all about the margin.
Yeah.
And I looked at Lulu and saw, wow, they're doing these sweat-wicking, odor-protectant, all of these things down at the molecular level. And you see when Lulu got bought by private equity, all the women were complaining about their yoga pants smelling. And it's because they started doing what Nike did. It was owned by a private equity group, and they were, we're not paying $10 a yard of fabric to do these treatments when we can get it for $3 a yard with a spray. So I start seeing all of the tech, and my wheels start spinning. And as you said, I'm an extrovert, so I'm blabbing to all the people at the factory, and I'm saying, look at these pictures. Look at this GoPro. This is me paragliding. This is me climbing. What if we had this for this? And as a combat vet, with this kind of pack that I had and this whole kit, what if we did this? And the folks at the factories loved it because they were excited. Mm-hmm. They hadn't really ever seen someone that was doing it, designing it. Yeah. They would have an engineer with tech packs come in and say, we need this, now here's the quality standards, now here's where you're going to be accountable with the tensile of the string. So I started just patenting my own fabrics for my own adventures, and then giving stuff to my buddies that were active duty SEALs, Green Berets, Marine Marines, contractors, and saying, guys, try this out. And it wasn't for sale. There wasn't some business plan and we're going to do this. Sure. And I had worked with a guy named David Johnson Wood, David William Johnson, both of us from Knoxville, Tennessee. And he and I designed the logo. Virtus is Latin for warrior virtues. Tim Scott, VOG, Virtues of God, had said the warrior virtues, the virtues are our honor, our courage, our commitment, but also our authenticity and validity. Like, we don't want to see celebrities getting paid to wear this unless they do the sport that we're doing. It's not bashing celebrities or movie stars or athletes, but I don't want an NFL player promoting a rock climbing kit unless he rock climbs.
Yeah.
So it was a thing where, and my whole ethos of warrior virtues is the school teacher, the fireman, the janitor, the lunch lady, the special ed coach, the special needs kid. These are everyday warriors. This isn't we're only warriors if we're operators. This is, I say earn it daily. That's because we all have the opportunity every single day to start to pound in consistencies, to gain the virtues of God.
Right.
The virtues of our love and power source. You don't have to be a Christian, or a Judeo-Christian or a Muslim to understand that. It's linking into the source that gives you life, that breathes life into you. With life and with that breath, we have the opportunity every day to be our own warrior and to be our own hero.
Right.
That's aligning with fellow warriors like you, like us, like what we're doing here for the light. And so I was very transparent on social media with everything we were doing, with our failures, with the things that were cool. I mean, there were videos of me busting my ass, abseiling down a freaking waterfall, and like it just things that in hindsight now I'm like, I'm so lucky that I didn't break my neck doing that. But glad we got that on film. Glad we got that in the Dropbox. But it really just started to hit and resonate with people, and I started getting purchase orders, and truly it was one of these things that was God's path, and it was so organic and continues to be organic. We made things for the operator community, SWAT units globally, global militaries, global special forces, and then we started doing athletic gear. And when we started doing athletic gear, and then we got asked by Spartan to come start leading events and working with their Spartan Extreme Endurance, leading the Agogis and then the Hurricane Heats, that's when organically it really took off. Now we're selling B2B, buyer to buyer in 34 countries, and we're selling in over 100 countries B2C. Wow. So that's God's path. That was all by every time I tried to push something that wasn't organic and said, this is going to be it. If only this person will wear it. We've got this KOL. None of that stuff resonates with people as much as just them being the masters of their destiny and being part of a global family of warriors. So it was really keeping things organic that has continued to make things blossom and has kind of turned my work into my hobby and what I love to do.
Yeah, it was funny because I was going to ask you, I was like, one of the things that makes your company unique, but you clearly answered all of that. I mean, not a lot of people are, not a lot of companies are doing that where they're, catering towards they're actually doing, what they're selling. In other words, you've tested out all of the stuff, you know exactly just because of the, type of sports that you do, what equipment works and what doesn't, and that's what you built all of your gear on, all of your clothing, and I absolutely love that. I think there's a lot of people that just create a company and they're just like, oh, you know what, I just want to do this, I just want to make some money, but you clearly care about, and you're very passionate. I can tell you're very passionate about it, and I think that's definitely something that's unusual. Most people are just thinking the money part, but you're thinking way beyond that, and I absolutely love that.
Thank you. Our long term, and really why I'm moving to Spain. I was supposed to already be in Marbella, Spain, but Lord willing, I'll be there July 1st when Spain opens their borders back up. But we developed a tactical sandbag and a tactical assault ruck. And I wasn't going to roll this out to the civilian market. It was just going to be this deal we've already done with the Ministry of Defense and the Spanish Army, infantry battalions. But it is take anywhere, my ropes, my rock climbing kit, my travel bag, ruck, military, full grade, 1,000 denier mil spec, tactical nylon, and an assault sandbag. And this whole system is what I used in isolation. I got stuck I'm still stuck in Vietnam. I was at the Rex Hotel, a very interesting history. My father was here during the Vietnam War as a Navy corpsman, but the Rex Hotel, where the journalists had to hide and were literally hiding in between walls till they were rescued. So that's where I was. And that's where I was doing all the videos with the GoPro, testing out the bag, testing out the backpack, and then making adjustments, taking pre-orders. And so now we had launched a whole pre-order campaign a few weeks ago. We're cutting that up on Father's Day. But we had twice the orders for minimum order quantity within a week of running that pre-order. Wow. So the reason I'm going to Spain and where I want us evolving is really leading corporate leadership seminars. And that's taking upper management to not just consulting, saying, okay, let's look at, let's victimize and look at where this, and this are wrong with your company, and let's look at your supply chain and blah, blah, blah. But it's team building, and it's, as touche as it sounds to say, people say, what is your purpose? And I say, my purpose is helping people find their purpose. And so what Virtus Outdoor Group is morphing into, we'll always make clothes, we have more tactical gear, more camouflage licensees. Being in Vietnam and building some things in the US, some in Vietnam, some in Indonesia, some in Taiwan, all depending on what compliancy they need for Special Operations Command purchase orders, Ministry of Defense purchase orders. We are becoming more of a manufacturing hub for other companies as well as our own. So I've taken on 6 companies that are competition to me, that I'm fully manufacturing. They wanted to get out of China with everything going on. I said, I've been out of China. Let me help you guys run your management and run your whole supply chain. So that's what I've set up here over the past 5 months. And so we've now got a subsidiary Virtus Outdoor group, so a manufacturing side group here.
Sure.
And then what I'm going to be doing in Spain, and then with my team that's in the US, we've got a killer group of guys in the US, with Spartan, guys that are with Sorinex, and guys that are with the tactical games, and obviously Spartan Extreme Endurance. But it will be running these events that are really getting people around the campfire and finding their path and their purpose. Okay. And that's a mission tool in itself, because we've got so many guys and gals with PTSD that don't feel like they have a mission. And one of the things that I found in leading these 60-hour Spartan Extreme Endurance events that I started doing with Rudy Reyes in Mongolia was we were given an opportunity to share our background and our expertise to guys and gals that were wanting that military camaraderie. But we saw and realized while doing it that you don't have to be in the military to have that kind of camaraderie. You just have to be doing something out of your comfort zone with accountability that's challenging and growing with like-minded warriors. And so we really want to adapt that into the business place. This isn't anything, competing with what I'm doing with Spartan. This is just our own operator and pro athlete led strategy to really kind of deepen our growing process, sitting around the campfire, a lot more tears, a lot more emotions, and a lot more of kind of a self-intervention, and then a dialing in, networking, and plugging in, and then post-accountability.
Sure.
So that's really where we're headed. It's clinics, programming, our own clothing line, new camouflage tactical groups, and then mass manufacturing for other companies. So with all that being said, I think what I'll say next is I've got a really great team of people that I'm just passing the torch to.
That's important too.
Where I'm going to be able to kind of disconnect, do where my strengths are networking. I really love the design and the networking and the sourcing, but there's such better men and women that are much better leaders and much better experts in the field that now I can say, guys, run with this.
Right.
So
awesome.
My wife's really unhappy about that, because that means me being annoying her a lot.
That's funny. So actually so I have a couple questions just that some people had, on Instagram that kind of chimed in. Obviously some follow you. And so I'm just going to read a couple questions to you. But one of the questions that I thought was interesting was apparently, so it says, I am overseas and I've been away from my family just like you. Is there any advice that you can give me to help cope being away from my family?
We live in such a great time with our video apps and our smartphones that it's important to stay up and make sure that you're on their time zone and getting all the FaceTime that you can with them. It would suck if you were in a blocked country where you didn't have access to that, but hopefully they do have access to that. And take this time as a gift. Use this time away to remember why you love your spouse, why your spouse loves you, and take this time to think about what your spouse doesn't love about you and why that's in you. And, I think with the loneliness and frustration of not seeing my family, it's encouraged me and motivated me to be the best version of myself for when I see them.
So it's helped you grow, basically.
It's definitely helped me grow. We always, when we're together, things are rushed, and we've got all these plans and things that we want to do, but they always get pushed to the side by just what's happening right now. Go with the flow. So I think it's great to have this opportunity. As painful as it is, we don't ever take our families for granted again. Think about why we're lonely and what we miss the most, and then tell our wives, tell our husbands, tell our partners, tell our kids, tell our parents every day that we have that video time with them, why we miss them so much and what's important. And then, I'm one to always find a blessing in a delay, and to just find the silver linings, because there are always silver linings, even if it's just in our pain, sharing that pain so that other people can avoid it and learn from our failures. So just hang in there.
Yeah.
That's my advice. Hang in there and grow.
All right, so I'm just gonna ask, and I don't want to take up too much more of your time.
No, you're fine.
So, okay, so someone wants to know. Let's see here. What do we have? Okay, are there any days where you just don't feel like working out? What is your motivation and your drive, or what drives you to continue? Because I know that, like, people are always seeing you out there just being active, just working out, and I know that some people are like, oh my gosh, well, how do you have that motivation? How do you keep on going? Because sometimes it's hard.
I never want to work out. I'm never like, okay. I just can't wait to work out. I can't wait to throw the sandbag around. I do so much filming, working out, that it's like, I have to do my workout before I go work out and film, and it is 100% consistency.
Yeah.
We build discipline through consistency, so it's not an option.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like, I can't wait to work out. Now, I joined the UFC gym here, so I do get to do ruck runs to that, and it's exciting. It was exciting the first month that I was there. Now it's lost its luster because it, again, is just a gym. We are the gyms. Our bodies are the temples of the Holy Spirit. So once I'm moving, once I'm working out, then I love it every time. Once I'm grinding, once I'm in there, and I if we can only look as good as our pump.
Right.
Right. But once you're looking in the mirror and you're fixing the adjustments on where your balance is off, people think the mirrors in the gym are for us to look at ourselves. They're there so we do the exercises correctly.
Yes.
So it's once we're sitting in there and we're saying, oh crap, my feet aren't aligned correctly, and we're there. Then you remember why you're there and you love it.
Yeah.
But for me, it's daily consistency. If I don't wake up at the same time every day, if I'm not doing intermittent fasting sucks.
Yes.
I like to eat.
Yes.
Anyone who follows me on Instagram sees the stuff that I eat. I'm a big guy. I like to eat. I've got to feed the beast. But it's with consistency. And it's joining together in accountability, like what you provide.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's having somebody to keep you accountable, and then it's making it ritual.
Yeah.
And it's the same with it's the same with kindness. It's the same with positivity. It's the same mindset.
Yeah.
But to answer that, I don't really have motivation. I have people inspire me. You inspire me. Pauline inspires me. Rudy Reyes inspires me. Terrence Mitchell inspires me. But it's that daily consistency that builds discipline. And once we have the discipline in, it's just. Once we have that discipline in, the biggest risk for me is injury, because I never take days off. I have to make myself take Sundays off and say, okay, it's only body weight, or it's only yoga, or it's only stretching.
Yeah.
I mean, my biggest flaw is overtraining and not having the recovery time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like with me, I had to really take a step back, because we can easily kind of, like you said, overtrain. And I was just like, I'm getting older. I need to stretch more, and I wasn't doing that enough. So
right.
I was yeah, I know. I'm 43 now, so it's like things are starting to, hurt, and I just got to be careful.
Right.
But sometimes you don't always have the motivation, and that's what I tell people. And so I love that you said it's just about consistency, because I don't wake up either and I'm like, I want to go in my garage in the Texas heat, 96 degrees to work out, that's not my motivation, but yeah.
But you always feel great after you've done it.
Oh,
every single freaking time. After every workout, when your body says, I'm done, and you say, I'm going to push, forget that. I'm going to go to failure.
Yeah.
We're going to do this one more time. That feeling that you get is feeling of why you do it. Your body says thank you.
Yeah.
And then you get to eat.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the best part about it.
And then you earned your meal. So yeah, it's all about consistency with me.
Yeah. All right. Let me see if I think I have another question here. Okay. So apparently this is a lady. Will you have any more female gear coming out in your product line?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm wrapping up final designs on that now.
Awesome.
I am doing the high waist leggings.
Nice.
I'm going to do full length leggings as well. We have some that are just below the knee and that are really low, and they were for the Spartan racers. And so we're doing a high waist legging. We're going to do another short. We're going to do a high waist short. and I'm doing 2 more sports bras. Everything else is unisex. And guys, you're more than welcome to wear the sports bras. I've got C cup. I wear them some. So I wear them sometimes as well. But it's all about what makes you happy. But yes, the Solly jeans are unisex. Everything's basically unisex. The only leggings that were designed for men around the crotch are the Mitchell leggings. But we've got a bunch of Spartan gals that wear them and like them, and they look better than I do. So we're doing 2 more sports bras, and what I want to do is bring more of I don't want to say yoga, but more of a lifestyle.
Okay. Nice.
Into it, because we've got so many folks that, especially now with COVID and folks working from home and not having to get dressed up to go to an office, I want to do a lot more active lifestyle wear that are treated functional fabric that you can wear to dinner with your partner.
Yeah.
That you can go. And we're doing like a longer sports bra that actually doubles as a top that you wear to the club or to dinner.
Nice.
So
yeah, I feel like
there's now.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot more people now, though, that are definitely kind of wearing like that lifestyle fitness type stuff. I mean, I feel like with me, when I look in my closet, I have more workout clothes than I do like normal clothes. But yeah. I mean, it's just so easy just to put on a pair of leggings just to go out. I guess I'm getting lazy as I get older. I don't know.
But it's also like what feels good to wear.
Yes. And jeans are not that comfortable.
I get why women wear leggings. When I wear mine and I do distance swimming, they feel great. So our jeans are unisex, and they are a knit. So they look like denim, but it's a 4-way stretch. It's not a denim. So I made those for rock climbing and for functional active wear.
Okay.
So
that's really good to know. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's see. I think that's about all the questions that I had for you. Yeah, that's about it. Okay, so what I wanted to know is, can you let everybody know where they can find you on like social media, on Instagram, and also your website?
Yes. My website is www.vogstore.com. And my social media, I just do Instagram for my personal, and it's DavidJ_Wood. And our Virtus is Virtus.outdoors. But if you just Google David Johnson Wood, there's a Google Knowledge panel, and it has that's probably the easiest. It'll show you any articles, media. We can upload this podcast to that, and that's easy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time. I know you're like super busy, so I really appreciate it. It was really great to talk to you, and I'm just so thankful for you sharing your story. You're just very encouraging, and so I really appreciate that.
Likewise, thank you for your time. I've done 8 back-to-back podcasts this last couple of weeks, and this has been great. It's so nice talking to somebody who is also an athlete.
Yeah.
And kind of lives what they do. It's great to talk about things that are not political.
Yes.
And work on uniting. We've just got to keep each other and everybody that we touch and that touches us on the trajectory to the telos. And right now, that is unifying.
Yes, I'm with you 100% on all that. Absolutely. Yeah.
So thank you. Lovely talking with you.
Thanks for your time. Talking with you. Bye.
Thanks for listening in. Please be sure to check out my Facebook group, Ask Christina, where you can post your questions on topics that you'd like me to cover on one of my episodes.